The crimson sunrise painted jagged shadows across the Valerian Canyon as Sienna Novak pressed her back against weathered stone. Sweat trickled down her temple, the arid heat making each breath feel like inhaling fire. Her reconnaissance mission had gone sideways the moment her communications array failed standard equipment. Shouldn't break down after a simple dust storm. Now she was effectively blind. Cut off from the Terran exploration corps, Sienna checked her tactical scanner once more, hoping for a miracle. Nothing. Just as she prepared to move positions, the silence shattered, for figures dropped from the canyon rim in perfect synchronization, their movements fluid as water over stone. Before she could reach her weapon, a weighted mesh enveloped her legs, sending her sprawling onto the rusty soil. "Remain still, intruder," commanded a voice cold as interstellar space. Sienna looked up to see a striking figure standing over her. The woman, if that term applied, stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin the deep azure of Earth's oceans. Eyes glowed amber, set within a face adorned with intricate geometric scarification. In her right hand, she held a luminescent spear that hummed with energy. Sienna noticed a thin fracture running along the weapon shaft, a flaw carefully maintained, perhaps deliberately preserved. Nevin called another of the blue-skinned hunters. "Why waste time? Terminate the human and continue patrol." Gaze never left Sienna. "The council will determine its fate." "Tavros, the council grows weak with age," Tavros spat. "These creatures multiply like parasites. Better to eliminate them at first sight." "The council," Nevin repeated with quiet authority, "will determine its fate." Sienna remained silent, cataloging details while they argued. Their technology was fascinating. Advanced energy weapons alongside ritual knives, sophisticated composites, mixed with organic materials. Most intriguing was Nevin herself. While the others viewed Sienna with disgust, Nevin studied her with clinical detachment. As if conducting a scientific observation, the 6-hour march that followed tested Sienna's endurance against terrain that would challenge mountain goats. The Taurusi moved like shadows across vertical faces that appeared impossibly smooth. Their destination rose from the canyon floor like a cathedral of living stone spires that seemed grown rather than built, with graceful arches connecting crystalline towers. The settlement's interior defied human architectural logic, following a 3-dimensional maze pattern that made Sienna's navigation training useless. Bioluminescent panels cast a blue-white glow that made her captor's skin shimmer with an almost ethereal quality. Young Teresi peered at her from alcoves before being quickly shepherded away by watchful adults. The council chamber was vast and circular, with 13 figures seated on ascending crystalline platforms surrounding a central pillar that pulsed with energy like a massive heartbeat. "Ivan of the Azure Hunt," spoke the eldest, his voice carrying despite his apparent frailty. "Explain this intrusion." Ivan stepped forward, her spear held in formal position. "Honored elder, I discovered this human moving purposefully through the forbidden canyons. It was armed and collecting data. I bring it for judgment." "Human," another council member said, making the word sound like a disease. "Likely a scout for their expansion efforts." "Possibly," Nevin agreed, though its behavior was unusual. It did not flee when cornered, nor beg when captured. It simply ... observed. The elder leaned forward, fixing Sienna with ancient eyes. "Understand our language, creature?" "I do," Sienna replied calmly. "And I understand you're making the same mistake every species makes about humans." A deadly silence fell over the chamber. Nevin moved with lightning speed, the butt of her cracked spear striking across Sienna's jaw with brutal precision. The impact echoed through the stone chamber as blood sprayed from Sienna's split lip. "That's for your presumption," Nevin snarled. Sienna slowly straightened, refusing to fall despite her bound hands. She spat blood onto the pristine floor, then raised her head. When she smiled, it was the expression of someone who had just revealed a hidden advantage. "I appreciate the welcome," she said, then turned her back on Nevin and walked directly toward the council as if the warrior's weapon wasn't inches from her spine. "But I think we can find more productive ways to communicate, don't you?" Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber at her audacity. "Your kind shows little respect for boundaries." the elder continued. Your colonies spread like infection across territories not your own. What brings you to our domain? I'm a xenobiologist with the Terran Exploration Corps, Sienna replied. My mission was to assess whether peaceful coexistence might be possible between our species. The chamber erupted in argument. Nevin remained silent, her amber gaze never leaving Sienna's face. The elder raised a hand for silence. The human will be detained pending our deliberation. Nevin, since you brought it here, it remains your responsibility. As they left the chamber, Nevin's frustration was evident in the tightness of her shoulders. She had hoped for a quicker resolution, preferably one that involved Sienna's permanent removal. The stiffness in her movements told Sienna everything she needed to know. Her presence represented an unwelcome complication in Nevin's ordered world. And complications, Sienna thought as she followed her azure-skinned captor, were exactly what both their species needed. Sienna's cell was more guest chamber than Prisana carved alcove with basic amenities and a surprising degree of comfort. For 3 days, Nevin delivered meals personally, a protein paste with a nutty flavor and copper-tasting fruits that made Sienna's tongue tingle pleasantly. The Taurasi warrior spoke little, always positioning herself between Sienna and the exit, her cracked spear ever at the ready. On the 4th morning, distant shouts echoed through the settlement. Nevin burst through the door, her usual composure. Fractured by urgency, there's been an attack, she announced, amber eyes blazing. Separatists from the Western Territories have breached our outer defenses and are advancing toward the Crystal Sanctum. Sienna rose immediately. I'm sorry to hear that. You're going to help stop them, Nevin stated, the words hanging between them like a challenge. Why would I do that? Sienna asked, studying Nevin's face for deception. 'Cause if they reach the sanctum and destabilize the heart crystal, this entire settlement collapses, including your extraction point 8 kilometers from here. Sienna felt her blood chill. What do you need me to do? Your kind claims tactical superiority. Prove it. Yvonne led her to a small armory spanning what appeared to be centuries of Taurasi military tradition. She handed Sienna a sleek pulse, rifle, and tactical harness. This will kill you as easily as them if you attempt betrayal. Remember that. Emergency passages led them to a rocky outcropping overlooking the eastern approach. Below, 15 figures moved with practiced precision through the canyon. Nevin observed them through a crystalline scope. All veterans, she said grimly. Elite. Hunters. How many defenders? Sienna asked. Nevin's silence answered everything. Just us? Sienna asked incredulously. Where is everyone else? The council recalled all warriors to protect the inner chambers. That's a mistake, Sienna said, analyzing the terrain. They're creating a bottleneck while allowing a smaller team to flank and hit the real objective. Is there another way to the sanctum? Yvonne's expression tightened. The Echo Cavern sand stable passages beneath the settlement. No one has used them in generations. Someone's using them now, Sienna said. We need to move. The caverns earned their name from the eerie whispers created by air currents through narrow passages. Nevin led the way, her spear tip providing the only illumination in the absolute darkness. They moved in silence, ducking under irregular ceilings and skirting chasms that dropped into infinity. There, Nevin whispered, pointing to a faint glow ahead through a crack in the rock wall. The crystal sanctum stretched before them. Vast chamber where a pillar of pure energy rose from floor to ceiling like frozen lightning. 5 Taurasi, in combat armor, moved toward it with lethal purpose. If they disrupt the resonance matrix, the entire mountain comes down, Nevin breathed. I have a plan, Sienna said, but you won't like it. Tell me, we need a distraction while one of us gets positioned to take them out. And who creates this distraction? Your people expect humans to be weak and cowardly. Let's use that assumption. Before Nevin could object, Sienna slipped through the crack and dropped into the sanctum. Rifle deliberately held loosely, her movements exaggerated and uncertain. Separatists spun toward her, weapons trained. A human? Her leader spat. How did this creature get in here? Please don't hurt me, Sienna called, voice quavering with manufactured fear. I'm just a prisoner. I got lost trying to escape. The separatists exchanged looks of disgust and amusement. "Kill it quickly," their leader ordered. "We have work to do." Nevin struck like vengeance incarnate. Her spear blazed through the first separatist before he could turn. Her second shot caught another in the chest. Sienna abandoned her act, rolling behind cover as her first shot spun the leader around. Her second finished him. The fifth separatist, panicking, turned his weapon toward the heart crystal itself. "No!" Nevin shouted, too far to intervene. Sienna threw herself forward, tackling the separatist as his finger tightened on the trigger. The bolt went wide, scarring the wall instead of shattering the crystal. They fought desperately for control of the weapon. The separatist was stronger, but Sienna was faster and more precise. When the struggle finally ended, she rolled away. Gasping for breath, Nevin stood over her, spear point inches from her throat. For a moment, Sienna thought the Teresi might finish what the separatist had started. Then, remarkably, she extended her hand. "You fought well, for a human." Sienna accepted the offered hand. "Thanks, I think." The settlement was in chaos when they emerged. Nevin found the council in emergency session, arguing furiously over tactics. The sight of her returning with her armed human prisoner brought the debate to an abrupt halt. Honored Elder Nevin announced, "The Crystal Sanctum is secure. Infiltration team has been eliminated." "How?" demanded a younger council member. "And why is the human still armed?" Nevin hesitated, then straightened. "She fought beside me. Without her assistance, the crystal would have been destroyed." The chamber erupted again. The elder raised his hand for silence. "You fought alongside one of our warriors?" he asked Sienna. "This is unprecedented." "The situation called for cooperation," Sienna replied simply. "Indeed," the elder mused. "Nevin, you vouch for this human's actions?" "I do, honored elder." "Then by ancient law she has earned consideration as a potential ally rather than prisoner. The council will deliberate further." That night, instead of returning to her cell, Nevin led Sienna to her own quarter-spacious chambers with a balcony overlooking the canyon. Weapons and trophies from past victories adorned the walls. "You're not a prisoner anymore," Nevin said, "but not exactly free either. Odd. The council has declared you probationary, meaning your fate depends on your continued usefulness." Walked to the balcony, looking over the settlement that glowed with bioluminescent light against the darkening sky. "Can I ask you something?" "Ask?" "Why bring me to the council instead of killing me in the canyon? It would have been simpler." Nevin was quiet for so long that Sienna thought she wouldn't answer. Finally she said, "Because you didn't run when surrounded. You could have tried escaping, begged for your life, fought uselessly. Instead, you watched, learned, adapted. And that impressed you? That confused me. You fought your kind before. They're predictable, emotional, weak. But you were different." "I wanted to understand why, and do you understand now?" Sienna asked, turning to face the Teresi warrior. Nevin's amber eyes reflected starlight as she considered the question. "No," she admitted. "But I'm beginning to think that might be the point." A strange routine developed over the following week. Sienna moved freely through most areas of the settlement, always under guard, but with increasing autonomy. Reactions from the Torisi population were mixed. Some showed cautious respect after. Word spread of her role in protecting the Crystal Sanctum, while others displayed open hostility. Each morning, Nevin insisted on training sessions, ostensibly to evaluate Sienna's combat skills. These sessions began formally, but gradually evolved into genuine cultural exchange. Sienna learned the precise movements of Teresi spear combat while demonstrating human martial arts techniques. "Your fighting style is inefficient," Nevin observed. During their third session, circling Sienna on the practice platform, suspended above the canyon. "Too many movements." "We call it boxing," Sienna replied, wiping sweat from her brow. "And it's about adaptability, not efficiency." "Show me again," Nevin demanded. Sienna demonstrated the basic stance and jab-cross combination. To her surprise, Nevin mimicked the movements with uncanny precision. "Interesting," the Torisi warrior conceded. "See the tactical applications?" During these sessions, Sienna began to notice subtle changes in Nevin. The rigid warrior occasionally revealed glimpses of curiosity, even humor. Once, after Sienna executed a particularly complex evasive maneuver, Nevin's lips curled in what might have been a smile. "You learn quickly for a human," she said, the hesitation before human representing a significant shift from her earlier contempt. "And you're surprisingly adaptable for someone so traditional," Sienna countered. Their eyes met.
Oh.
And something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of mutual respect that neither had anticipated. On the sixth night, Nevin found Sienna on the communal observation deck, studying the unfamiliar constellations that wheeled overhead. "You should be resting," Nevin said, approaching quietly. "Council meetings can be exhausting." Earlier that day, Sienna had been summoned to present her assessment of human-Tauri relations. The debate had been heated, with several council members openly rejecting any possibility of peaceful coexistence. "Just mapping the stars," Sienna replied. "It helps me think." "What thoughts occupy you tonight?" Nevin asked, settling beside her. "How similar our peoples are, despite appearances. We both evolved as hunters. We both value skill and courage. We both fear extinction." Nevin was silent for a moment. "The council remains divided. Elder Joran supports a provisional alliance, but Councillor Trevak leads strong opposition." "Expected." "That," Sienna said. "Change never comes as Lynot for humans, not for Tauri. Trevak believes all humans are deceitful. He claims your peaceful overtures masked colonial ambitions." "What do you believe?" Sienna asked, turning to face Nevin. Directly, the Tauri warrior studied her with those intense amber eyes. "I believe individuals can transcend the limitations of their species." Something warm unfurled in Sienna's chest at these words. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers stopping just short of touching the intricate scarification that marked Nevin's jawline. "What do these symbols mean?" "They tell my story," Nevin replied, her voice unusually soft. "Each mark represents a trial survived, a lesson learned." "And this one?" Sienna asked, pointing to a distinctive pattern near Nevin's temple. "That marks my first hunt alone," Nevin explained. "The passage from youth to warrior." "It's beautiful," Sienna said simply. Later that night, as Sienna lay in her quarters, a quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. Nevin entered carrying a small wooden box. "A communication arrived from your exploration corps," she said. "Our perimeter sensors detected their signal." Sienna sat up, surprised. "You intercepted it?" "Monitored it," Nevin corrected, placing the box on the table. "The council has authorized me to give you this transmitter. You may respond to your people." Sienna opened the box to find a small device compatible with Terran technology. "Why now?" "Elder Joran believes trust must begin somewhere." Nevin hesitated. "I argued for this concession." "Thank you," Sienna said, genuinely moved by the gesture. "Hey, there." "Our conditions," Nevin continued. "Your message will be monitored. It will not reveal our defensive capabilities or the location of the Crystal Sanctum. Understood?" Nevin nodded, then turned to leave. At the doorway she paused. "Sienna." Was the first time Nevin had used her name rather than human or you. "Yes." "What will you tell them about us?" "About me?" The question carried weight beyond its simple phrasing. Sienna considered carefully before answering. "The truth," she said. "That the Tauri are complex, powerful, and worthy of respect. That meaningful alliance is possible, despite our differences. That I've met individuals who challenge everything we thought we knew about your species." Nevin's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Rest well," she said, and was gone. The following morning brought disturbing news. Scouts reported increased separatist activity in the outer territories with indications that disparate factions were unifying under a single leader. Darvik, former Tauri war chief exiled for atrocities against neighboring settlements, as Nevin briefed the council. Sienna noticed the familiar fracture in her spear seemed to pulse with the warriors. Increasing tension. When their eyes met across the chamber, Sienna realized with startling clarity that whatever happened next would determine not just her fate, but potentially the future of both their species, and somewhere in the space between duty and possibility. She also recognized that her feelings for Nevin had evolved beyond professional respect to something far more complicated and dangerous. The war room buzzed with tense activity as Terezi commanders gathered around a three-dimensional tactical display. Holographic terrain maps showed the Great Valley, the sacred heartland of Terezi. Civilizations surrounded by red indicators representing Darvek's advancing forces. 3,000 fighters at minimum, War Chief Sorvin announced grimly. More joining daily. They've seized 4 major settlements and cut off the northern supply routes. Sienna studied the tactical situation with growing concern. After weeks of advocacy, she had finally been granted advisory status within the military counselor position, unprecedented for any non-Terezi, let alone a human. Her insights had proven valuable enough that even the most conservative commanders now listened, however reluctantly. Darvek's strategy is clear, she observed. Control the Valley Nexus while preventing loyal clans from coordinating an effective response. It's a classic encirclement. What's our response? Asked a clan leader named Jarek, his scarification marking him as a veteran of countless battles. The council has authorized deployment of the Grand Reserve, Nevin replied, entering the chamber. With Elder Joran, every warrior from every loyal clan will meet them at the valley entrance and end this rebellion decisively. Sienna frowned. That's exactly what Darvik wants. The room fell silent as every eye turned toward her. Several commanders began objecting simultaneously, but Nevin raised her hand. Explain, she commanded. Darvik wants a grand battle, Sienna said, moving to the tactical display. He's betting his unified force can defeat your coalition in conventional combat. And he's probably right. Unified command almost always beats coalition politics. You suggest we surrender then? Jarek demanded, blue fingers tightening around his ceremonial dagger. I suggest you don't give him the battle he wants, Sienna countered. Make him fight the war you're good at instead. Sorvin leaned forward, his ancient eyes narrowing. Continue. The Terezi evolved as hunters, not conventional soldiers, Sienna explained. Your advantages are stealth, individual skill, and intimate knowledge of the terrain. Those disappear in large-scale conventional battle, but they're decisive in smaller engagements. You propose fragmentation? Navon asked, understanding dawning in her amber eyes. Exactly. Don't mass your forces for a single decisive battle. Position them to control key terrain and supply lines throughout the region. When Darvik advances, make him fight 20 smaller battles simultaneously, each exploiting specific weaknesses. Like fighting a swarm of venom insects, Elder Joran mused. Precisely. Individually, each attack is manageable, collectively, overwhelming. The debate that followed was fierce, touching on centuries of Terezi military tradition. By the end, a revolutionary strategy had been formulated. Clan forces would operate in coordinated but independent units, striking and withdrawing across a vast battle space, forcing Darvik to disperse his numerically superior forces. As the commanders dispersed, to prepare their units, Nevin approached Sienna. Walk with me, she said quietly. They moved through deserted corridors to a small meditation garden overlooking the canyon. Twilight painted the stone in shades of purple and gold, and twin moons were rising over the distant mountains. Is sound, Nevin said after a long silence. But it violates centuries of Terezi battle doctrine. Some believe this makes it sacrilege. Sometimes survival requires innovation, Sienna replied. Indeed, Nevin turned to face her directly. You understand what this means? If your strategy fails, both our peoples will suffer. If Darvik succeeds, he will not stop with Terezi territories. Human settlements will be next. I understand the stakes, Sienna said softly. Do you? Nevin stepped closer. Tomorrow, thousands of my people will risk everything based on your advice. Your word has become that valuable to us. To me. Admission hung between them, weighted with implications neither had fully acknowledged. Navon, I know, the Terezi warrior interrupted. Not yet. There is a tradition among my people. Before battle, we speak not of possibilities but certainties. What is certain is that I once saw you as less than me, as something alien and dangerous. What is certain is that I was wrong. She reached out, tracing the line of Sienna's jaw with a gentle touch that belied her warrior's strength. What is certain is that you have changed me in ways I cannot yet fully comprehend. Sienna felt her pulse quicken as she leaned into the touch. There are certainties for me as well, she whispered. That I came here to study your people objectively and failed completely. That somewhere between your spear striking my face and us fighting side by side, everything changed. The distance between them vanished as Nevin drew Sienna against her. Their lips met tentatively at first, then with growing urgency a connection that transcended species and history and all rational calculation. Nevin's skin was cooler than human standard, but radiating heat that matched Sienna's own rising temperature. When they finally separated, Nevin's expression contained wonder and confusion in equal measure. "This is unprecedented," she murmured. "Everything else about us," Sienna replied with a small smile as stars emerged in the darkening sky. They remained together, speaking quietly of their worlds, their experiences, their hopes beyond the coming battle. Neither mentioned the possibility of failure or separation, honoring the tradition of certainties only. Dawn brought the first reports. Darvek's army was advancing in 6 massive columns, converging on the Great Valley. Within hours they would reach the first Teresi positions. Phase 1, Sorvin announced as indicator lights confirmed loyal units were positioned across the operational area. All units report ready. Sienna stood beside Nevin at the command center, watching as each light represented warriors who had put aside generations of rivalry to work toward a common future. "Strange to think that weeks ago I was your prisoner," she murmured. "Strange. To think that weeks ago I considered you little more than an animal," Nevin replied, a hint of wonder in her voice. "Perhaps we've both learned about the dangers of assumptions." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission. "Command. This is Scout Unit 7. Enemy advance elements have reached the Obelisk Pass." "Acknowledged," Sorvin responded. The battle for the future of both their peoples had begun. The battle did not begin with clashing armies, but with precision strikes designed to fragment and confuse. Advanced scouts found communications jammed at critical moments. Supply convoys discovered sabotage. Bridges and mountain passes mysteriously collapsed. Command vehicles suffered equipment failures, leaving sections of Darvek's force isolated and vulnerable. For 3 days, Sienna remained at the tactical center with Nevin, coordinating the disparate clan forces into a synchronized campaign of disruption. Sleep came in brief intervals, often with Nevin at her side, their bodies intertwined as if physical contact could ward off the uncertainty of war. "Darvek's forces are dividing," Sorvin reported on the morning of the 4th day. "He's dispatched 3 battle groups to secure his supply lines and communications." "As predicted," Sienna noted. "Now comes the critical phase. If he commits his reserve to protect his rear areas, we can strike his center," Nevin finished. "Isolate him from his command structure." Reports continued to flow in throughout the day. Clan units were executing their missions with unprecedented coordination, each strike calculated to force specific reactions from Darvek's commanders. By nightfall, the once cohesive separatist army had been fractured into a dozen smaller formations, each responding to local threats rather than advancing with unified purpose. "Phase 3, Sorvin announced. "Concentrate on command elements." As the tactical display updated, however, a troubling pattern emerged. Significant force was moving directly toward the Crystal Nexus, the spiritual and technological heart of Taurus's civilization, located deep within the Great Valley. "He's identified our true vulnerability," Nevin said grimly. "The Nexus contains the ancestral records in core crystal matrix. If Darvek seizes it, he controls Taurus legitimacy," Sienna finished. "The clans would have to acknowledge his authority or risk cultural annihilation." Sorvin's expression darkened. "Our forces are committed across the operational area. We cannot concentrate quickly enough to intercept." "How many warriors guard the Nexus?" Sienna asked. "A ceremonial detail only," Elder Joran replied. "We never imagined Darvek would penetrate so deeply into our territory." "I'll go," Nevin declared. "With a small strike team, we can reach the Nexus before Darvek's force and prepare defensive positions. 12 warriors against hundreds." Sorvin shook his head. It would be sacrifice, not defense. Not if we employ the right tactics, Sienna interjected. The Nexus chamber has natural choke points. Small force properly positioned could hold significantly superior numbers at least long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Elder Joran studied her with ancient eyes. You speak as if you intend to participate in this mission. I do, Sienna replied without hesitation. The silence that followed was broken by Nevin. She comes with me, she stated, her tone brooking. No argument. Her tactical insight has brought us this far. We'll not leave it behind now. 2 hours later, Sienna found herself in a Taurisi scout vessel, skimming low over the canyon floor to avoid detection. Beside her, Nevin sat in focused silence, the fracture in her spear seeming to pulse with anticipation. 8 elite warriors completed their strike team, the best from different clans, united by desperation and necessity. We're approaching the Nexus, the pilot announced. No sign of Darvek's forces yet, but scanner range is limited in these canyons. The Nexus rose before them, a structure of impossible beauty, crystal spires reaching toward the sky like frozen music. Unlike the settlements Sienna had seen before, the Nexus appeared to be a single massive crystal formation. Shaped over centuries by Taurisi artisans, working in harmony with natural processes, they landed on a concealed platform, moving quickly. To secure the main approach, Sienna worked with Nevin to position their limited forces at key defensive points, maximizing fields of fire and creating overlapping zones of protection. If we can hold for 6 hours, Nevin explained, clan reinforcements will arrive from the northern territories. We'll hold, Sienna assured her, checking her pulse rifle. Nevin paused in her preparations, studying Sienna with an intensity that transcended tactical concerns. There is something you should know, she said quietly. Among my people, warriors who face death together share a bond that cannot be broken, not by distance, not by time, not even by death itself. Sienna felt her throat tighten with emotion. On Earth, we have a similar concept. Call it love. A simple word for something so complex, Nevin mused, tracing her fingers along Sienna's cheek. The best words usually are, Sienna replied, leaning into the touch. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent signal from their perimeter sensors. Movement detected multiple targets approaching from the South Canyon. Darvek's advance force emerged from the canyon mouth, at least 200 warriors in battle formation, led by a massive Taurisi, whose extensive scarification marked him as a warlord of significant experience and cruelty. Defensive positions, Nevin commanded. Remember, we don't need to defeat them, just delay them. The battle erupted with savage intensity. Energy bolts lanced between positions as Darvek's forces attempted to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Sienna and Nevin fought side by side, their movements synchronized through weeks of training together, each anticipating the other's actions with uncanny precision. They're probing our left flank, Sienna called out, spotting a movement pattern in the attackers. Nevin redirected to warriors to reinforce the position, just as Darvek's forces launched a concentrated assault. The timing was perfect. The reinforcements arrived precisely as the attackers committed, turning what should have been a successful breach into a costly failure for the Separatists. Hour after hour, the battle raged. 2 of their warriors fell, but Darvek's losses mounted steadily. What the defenders lacked in numbers, they made up for in position and coordination. Sienna's tactical insights combined with Nevin's combat experience created a defensive system that adapted continuously to each new threat. As the 5th hour dawned, however, Darvek himself led a desperate charge toward the main entrance. Sienna found herself directly in his path, separated from Nevin by the chaos of combat. Human filth, Darvek snarled, his massive form towering over her. Your interference ends now. His energy spear slashed toward her with lethal force. Sienna rolled aside, bringing her rifle up, but Darvek's second strike knocked it from her hands. As he prepared the killing blow, a blur of motion intercepted him, Nevin, hurling herself between them with reckless abandon. Their weapons met with a sound like shattering glass. The fracture in Nevin's spear extended violently, then unexpectedly, channeled energy in a way neither warrior anticipated. A pulse of brilliant blue light erupted between them, throwing both Nevin and Darvik backward. Sienna scrambled to Nevin's side, heart pounding with fear. Nevin. The Torsi warrior's eyes fluttered open. "Did we hold?" she whispered. Before Sienna could answer, the canyon echoed with the sound of approaching Vessel's clan reinforcements arriving at last. Darvik, wounded and seeing his advantage disappear, shouted orders for retreat. "We held," Sienna confirmed, helping Nevin to her feet. "We held together." In the days that followed, Darvik's rebellion collapsed as quickly as it had formed. Without central leadership, the separatist factions returned to their traditional infighting, unable to maintain cohesion against the now-unified clan forces. The council convened in the Crystal Nexus for a historic session. Elder Joran, addressing representatives from all clans, spoke words that would reshape the future of both species. "For generations, we have viewed humans as a threat to be contained. Or eliminated," he began, his ancient voice carrying through the chamber. "Recent events have demonstrated the limitations of such thinking. The strategy that saved our civilization came not from Torisi tradition, but from human insight. The warrior who defended our most sacred site fought alongside a human partner as an equal." Nevin and Sienna stood side by side before the council, their hands occasionally brushing in subtle contact. "Therefore, by the authority vested in me, as Elder of Elders, one propose a formal alliance between the Torisi Confederation and the Terran Exploration Corps as a framework for cooperation, exchange, and mutual defense." The vote was not unanimous, but the majority was decisive. As the council session concluded, Nevin led Sienna to a private balcony overlooking the Great Valley, now bathed in the light of sunset. So Sienna said, "What happens now?" Nevin replied, taking Sienna's hands in hers, "We build something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds." "Will it work?" Sienna asked. "There's so much history, so many differences." Nevin's amber eyes softened as she drew Sienna closer. "You once told me that your species excels at adaptation. Mine excels at persistence. Together, those qualities might create something extraordinary." As their lips met beneath an alien sky, Sienna reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment, from prisoner and captor, to allies, to something far more profound. The fractured spear that Nevin still carried seemed a fitting symbol. For their relationships, something broken that had become stronger in its brokenness, channeling energy in unexpected ways. "By the way," Sienna murmured against Nevin's lips, "I've been meaning to ask, what does the fracture in your spear signify? You maintain it deliberately, don't you?"